What's up, everybody? This is Chris with the Oak and Onion Board Game Podcast. We're here at TokenCon 2026, and I've got Scott Brady, game designer extraordinaire here. He's one of the special guests this weekend at TokenCon, and I just want to sit down and chat with him, get to know him a little bit better. We've met at a couple of conventions in the past few years, but just thought it'd be cool to introduce him to anybody that wants to get to know him a little bit better. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Sure. I am what they refer to as an independent game designer, in that I create and license my products to different publishers,
Yep.
as opposed to trying to produce and market them on my own. So it's much like being a book author, where I'm responsible for creating the content, in this case, creating the game. And then hopefully I can convince a publisher that it's good enough to publish,
Sure.
and then they have to convince the consumer to buy it.
Right. So what made you want to get into game designing to begin with?
I didn't have a desire to. There was never a point I said I want to be a game designer. My wife and I were working in the toy and game industry on a marketing capacity,
Okay.
and so I was involved in the industry, and we were reading lots of rule books and doing online reviews and all kinds of things. And there was a point where I read a rule book and was reviewing a game, and I thought, I think I could do better, because the subject was about something that I knew very well, which was color theory.
Okay.
So before I got into game design, I was in the printing industry for 20 years, and I worked with all manners of color theory, graphic design, etc. And when I saw this game, I just felt like I had a better concept for it.
Okay.
And eventually, I spent months and months and months just as a hobby at home creating what eventually became Hues and Cues.
Okay.
But I really designed it just for my family to showcase, oh, this is what I would have done. And because we had worked in the industry prior, I had people that I considered friends in the industry that I was able to show without it being a formal pitch that, hey, look at this cool thing I created. And those publishers were the ones that encouraged me to pursue it further.
Okay.
They said, oh, you've created something brand new and unique here. And that is eventually what became Hues and Cues. I signed it with USAopoly, and they've done an excellent job marketing it, and now it's in retailers literally around the world.
So that was your first design.
That was my first design.
And
Yep.
that first design is on mass market shelves everywhere.
That's
right?
correct.
So that's got to be a really cool feeling.
It's an amazing feeling. Let's not get that wrong. It was really a roller coaster. When I first started showing it to larger publishers, it was at Origins Game Fair in 2019.
Okay.
We literally had 7 companies pursuing us for the game.
Okay.
And I'd been in the industry long enough to know that doesn't normally happen.
Okay.
And I was fortunate to have so much interest in it. And ultimately, USAopoly was willing to move it up in their schedule. I didn't have to wait the normal 2 to 3 years for it to come out. Unfortunately, by the time they went to manufacturing was February of 2020.
Of course.
And of course, a month later, we're trying to issue a party game in the middle of COVID.
Right.
But in the end, it all worked out. They did a great job doing some alternative marketing, some creative things with radio, with print, some of the non-traditional marketing that we see for hobby games.
Okay.
And it's just continued to grow year over year. In fact, last year for 2025 was the first year they crossed 1 million units sold in 1 year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I was gonna say
Yeah.
it keeps getting talked about.
Yeah.
Some games like that may have came out 5-6 years ago, they kind of,
They're gone.
not that they're bad, but they kind of fade out.
Yeah.
People don't keep talking about them.
Yeah.
You don't still see them, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, but it keeps getting restocked.
Yep.
You keep seeing new people find it and talk about it.
Knock on wood, that doesn't quit happening.
Absolutely.
It's It's been great obviously for us as a family. It's helping put both my daughters through grad school.
Amazing.
The success I've had with it, and just the recognition has been really helped my career, of course, that I had this great hit at the beginning, and it definitely opened doors for me for, when I was ready to pitch other things.
Yeah. So you set that up,
Yep.
open more doors for you. So
Yep.
take us from Hues and Cues, move us forward. Where'd you go from there?
So, as I mentioned, Hues and Cues got issued during the pandemic. And I had a lot of people immediately writing me asking if I had two-player rules for the game. And I honestly tried to come up with good two-player rules for it. But the game really, it barely, sorry to the op for saying that, but it doesn't work as great even at 3. It's really meant to be a party game.
Sure.
And two-player rules just didn't work. I personally love abstract games. Checkers, chess, Go, you name it. That's
Right.
my personal preference. And my next challenge was I wanted to create an abstract game. And to kind of also prove to myself that I had more than one in me and just
Sure.
confused. And I knew that one had developed naturally based upon my career experience. So then it became a challenge to myself to say, okay, can I create something else? So I created this game called Gekatai. And Gekatai is the Japanese word for pushing something away or pushing something back in a military sense.
Okay.
Like if you're pushing the line back.
Gotcha.
But it all came from the base mechanic, which I called a shockwave mechanic, of placing a piece on a board and everything being shockwaved out, whether it be a meteor or whatever. And I came up with the basic rule set, called it Gekatai, and I gave it away for free on BGG as a print and play because people were looking for two-player games that they could play on lockdown. It was something you could play by just printing out a board and playing with pennies and nickels, or something like that. The interesting thing that happened was I started getting, of course, on BGG, you can follow your game and you get notified when people add stuff to it. And people were adding videos of custom sets they made. And I started seeing videos from Eastern Europe, from Russia, from all over the world of people who had downloaded the print and play version and were now teaching it on their YouTube channels.
It's so cool.
So I knew I thought I had something pretty special there. So as soon as things started coming out of lockdown, I started pitching it to publishers then as well. I could not get it signed. Absolutely, people love the game, they love the gameplay, but didn't feel it was a product they could sell. And I had to go back to the drawing board and actually I tried a number of themes that worked with the mechanic and actually built a little wooden bed and had a friend 3D print me some cats. And that's where, at the time, I called it Pounce House. That was my name for it. And that's what eventually became Boot. And I started carrying that around in my game bag. And I had one of the publishers who had previously rejected the game a year earlier, ran into him at Geekway to the West in St. Louis. And we were just sitting at a table just like this, casually talking. And he says, oh, by the way, whatever happened to that game? Because he was one of the ones that liked it, but didn't think he could market it, didn't know how to market another pure abstract. I said, oh, let me show you what I made. And so I pulled out this 3-dimensional cat bed and showed him, and he took one look at it, and it was, oh, I could sell that. And signed with him right away, didn't show it to anyone else. I was just happy that it would finally find a home. As part of the development process, they're the ones who figured out the right materials and the foam to be able to make a quilt for the bed.
Sure.
And one of their employees or their volunteers, while playtesting it, made the comment that I'm going to boop you off the bed. And that's where the name came from. Yeah.
That's great. And now there's 3 versions of it.
There's 3 versions of Boop. There's this base game, There was a Halloween version that was basically the base game with a micro expansion built into it. And then a Christmas version, which takes it into a full three-dimensional Christmas tree. In a couple months, there will be a new version hitting the shelves called Hoop Shuffle,
Okay.
which is a card game version of Hoop that does a lot of new, interesting things. The base mechanic is still there,
Okay.
but it's a very, very different experience for those who like the game. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Well, cool. And I know those are the only two games you've done.
That's right.
I know Caution Signs is what you
Yep.
co-designed with Danielle Reynolds.
That's correct.
And that racked up some awards the past couple of years
Yeah.
in the convention circles.
We've been really happy with how that one's been accepted by the hobby, because we found that even with Hues and Cues, party games are sometimes looked down upon in the hobby, because even when I sit down at a convention like this to play, I'm typically not playing party games. I'm playing the latest Feld game or Rosenberg game.
Absolutely.
But it's been very satisfying to design things that are both accepted in the hobby industry as a party game with a little bit of meat on the bone to keep people interested, but then also crosses over into what non-board gamers would play. You can play it with grandma, you can play it with the 5-year-old grandchild.
Right.
So Caution Signs has done a good job of that as well, to really bridge those generation gaps. Beyond Caution Signs, I have a couple other things coming out this year. This one, If Then, was just released a few weeks ago in the United States from Arcane Wonders.
Yep.
And it is, again, a very different game in that it's a cooperative logic game where you're trying to get rid of all the cards in your hand, but only one person at the table knows the rules to how to get rid of the cards in your hand.
Okay.
And everyone else has to work together to figure out those rules. There's 120 different challenges in the box. So there, no two games, should be alike in that. And of course, since you don't know the rules going in, even if you were to accidentally draw the same card, you're not going to know it for a long time until you discover it. But I'm really excited for that one. And I think there's two others coming out this year that I'm very proud of. I have a word association game coming out from Queen Games here in the U.S. It's their first one in their new family line.
Okay.
And it competes on the same level with Codenames, but really does something a little bit extra and above what Codenames does. So that will be released in April here in the U.S. It had a pre-release in Germany and Essen last year in German.
Oh, nice.
And so the English language version will be available here in the U.S. And then I have one that will compete on the same level as Hues and Cues. It is also a party game, but it's about estimating how large something is. So if I said to you, how big is the SETI game box? Okay. And we're having to go by memory here.
Sure.
And I haven't said height, width, or depth or anything like that. Everyone has a little string and a ball, and they slide the ball in the string to estimate how big they think it is.
Okay.
And then there's a method for comparing them. And whoever is shortest and longest, the two extremes, get strikes. So you want to be average.
Sure.
But it doesn't matter how big that SETI game box was. We don't ever look up the actual details. It's how well your recollection is compared to someone else's. And there's a lot of abstract things in that game, like a whale's eye. I have no idea how big a whale's eye is, and we haven't even talked about the species. But you'll get answers from as small as a couple inches to, maybe a whale's eye is this big. And it's all about being in the middle and not being on the extremes.
That sounds really interesting.
So that was called Size Wise. That'll be out in June of this year.
Okay.
Very excited for that one.
Awesome. So from releasing your first game in the pandemic, you've got several coming out this year.
Yep.
It's been quite the journey.
It
It's
really
exciting
has.
to see for sure.
It really has.
I know you do special guests at a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
And I've seen you at a few. One of the things you like to do are game jam events.
Sure.
Most people probably don't know what that means. So I'm curious, what what is the purpose of a game jam? What do you do? And why do you enjoy doing those at conventions?
So I travel to about 30 conventions a year, and many of them will have, I love the fact that many have either formal or informal areas for current designers or upcoming designers to play test what they're working on.
Sure.
And in conjunction with that, whoever's running that particular area will host a game jam is probably the more common, but there's other kinds of game challenges. And for instance, the one they ran here at TokenCon is they randomly picked a mechanic, a theme, and then another attribute, and they challenged people to either solely or work in teams to, in a certain amount of time, I believe here was about 90 minutes, to come up with a game concept and start working through some of the problems limited to what they've been challenged to do. I enjoy that because it's always wonderful to hear and to sit down and talk with the other designers while they're trying to come up with ideas and just see how creative everyone is. Because there are many times I hear ideas that, oh man, I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't have. A great example was last night's game jam where the theme was trains.
Okay.
And my mind went to trains. But there was one team of two that decided, well, train, that could be a bridal train. And so their game was about creating dresses.
Interesting.
And so it was just a neat interpretation of the challenge that even from the get-go, before they started designing everything, I already saw that creative spark that was different than the rest of us who were just trying to figure out how to make a train game that we're comfortable with. So it's great to be involved where those creative juices are flowing, and just to be a part of that and to be able to maybe contribute something or give people other ideas about, maybe consider this route or such. And of course, it's to network among the other designers also. I found many co-designers with that method where I either, we strike up a friendship and they show me something they're working on. And if I see a spark, I'll offer to collab with them. And so I also use that as a source for myself to find good people to work with.
Nice. That's really cool. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
Well, cool. Well, Scott, it's been great having you at the convention, our local con here in Oklahoma City. And hope you guys have had a good time.
Oh, we have. And this was our first time here.
Yeah.
I saw that you guys broke 1,400 for the attendance number, which is obviously 40% or so above last year, right? Yeah. I would encourage anyone who's within driving distance to consider this convention. You guys run some great events here, and I really love how well it's organized. And maybe next year we'll have free ice cream too.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Scott Brady recommends TokenCon.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. It's been a great time.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you've had a good time, and thanks for taking some time to sit down and chat with us.
Sure thing.
I know it's been a long weekend.
Yep.
You're tired, but I appreciate your time. And if any of these games sound interesting, I definitely recommend them. We love Boop. We have the Halloween version. That's the one we like the best. And so check out Scott. Do you have anywhere online people can follow along with your designs and journeys?
So I'm most active on Facebook, and you can follow me there or send me a friend request on there. If your content on your own personal Facebook shows board games, I'm happy to accept a friend request because then I know we're speaking the same language.
Right, absolutely.
But otherwise, you can always follow me on Board Game Geek as well.
Okay. So follow along with Scott and keep up with what he's got coming out. And some of them sound really exciting, and I can't wait to see them. So thanks again for your time, Scott.
Thank you.